You studied, so more of a policy, that was kind of your core anchor, and then you've really looked at that from a lot of different vantage points and government, and went to DC and then back to the Midwest and then back to DC. Like, how have those different perspectives actually kind of shaped your thinking about healthcare and leadership today? Like, kind of walk us through some of those different touch points.
Yeah, so I'll start actually straight out of graduate school. It was a 2-year program at the University of Kansas for my master's in public administration. The MPA program at KU is actually the #1 program for local city government officials. So all of my fellow students were aspiring mayors and city officials, and so got a little bit of insight into that from even just a public policy perspective as to the power that local and local government officials actually have in public health. And obviously we've seen that more recently with the global pandemic than I think we've ever really cared to realize of the importance of public health infrastructure, but really kind of took that insight and decided, I want to actually go be part of something that's pretty big. And that pretty large and big organization was actually Kaiser Family Foundation. And so that was my first foray into the broader policy community within Washington, D.C. My office was a block from the White House. It was, farm town girl in a big city type feeling that I was really, really fed and excited by. At Kaiser Family Foundation, I was an analyst, and my whole job was to do all of the analysis for the statehealthfacts.org website. I loved it. That organization is incredible, and I continue to use them today as a resource. The challenge that I had personally from a professional development standpoint was I didn't know what people did with it. I had no idea how people digested it. Did they use it to make decisions? Was it impactful? And so I realized that I actually wanted closer proximity to the front lines of clinical care decision making without actually going the medical route. And so went back and was a fellow actually at Children's Mercy, a pediatric hospital in Kansas City, Missouri, and worked directly with the CEO there. And that was an incredible experience in large part because I got to see the breadth of actually what it takes to run a pediatric hospital, which is actually a small city with really complex financial infrastructure. And so I did everything from sit in bond rating meetings with the city to flying on the helicopter during a live transport, to following a family and their son through their 3-year-old son's open heart surgery. And that was an incredibly foundational experience for me to have, to really understand the complexity that our families go through, that our providers go through, that our payers go through. I mean, that is a microcosm of our healthcare delivery system at a regional level for a really important part of the world, which is our future, the pediatric population. And that was a year appointment. And so literally, I think I'd probably still be there today in some capacity if they were like, Kelsey, this is a year appointment, your fellowship is ended, you need to move on. And because it was so fulfilling, and I got to take on different projects and travel to our sister hospital in Guangzhou, China, and so got a little international lens on what the delivery landscape looked like even in China. And then took that experience and went to the advisory board company, which took me back out to Washington, D.C. After some time at advisory board company, of course, Obamacare was passing. And that was, of course, a wave of energy that was coming through the DC community, the policy community, the healthcare community, and was fortunate enough to be employee #5 at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, and worked really closely with Rick Gilfillan and Sachin and Don and Joe and kind of that initial crew to set up CMMI and hire several hundred people in a really short period of time.
And you were like employee #5 for CMMI, right? So right from the ground.
Right from the ground, and it was incredibly daunting. Right, there was a cohort of us that didn't have great, depths of experience of working inside the federal government, and so figuring out really what authority we had and how we were going to really transition the perspective of our stakeholders of, historically being a regulator into being a partner. And so we set up a lot of infrastructure to actually engage providers and payers to help us inform actually what these, payment delivery models look like. So whether it was ACOs or bundled payments or, the Pioneer program, and then of course collaborate with people like Melanie Bellin, the dual eligible office, and our colleague Cindy Mann, who was running Medicaid at the time. So really thinking cross-agency, how do we take this center that has really incredible kind of legislative authority and really kind of catapult, the reimbursement system into a value-based system from a fee-for-service system, recognizing that there was tremendous, spotlights put on us from the White House to Congress, and keeping everyone kind of somewhat aligned with the direction and the pace of which we were moving was incredibly fulfilling and challenging, which of course is what made it so fulfilling, as we were able to kind of really start to engage and change the perspectives. That was